fall of Jericho, a story of faith and triumph. The morning sun rose over the encampment of Israel, casting its light on the tents stretching across the plains of Moab. The air was thick with anticipation. For 40 long years, the Israelites had wandered in the wilderness, but now they stood on the edge of the promised land. The city of Jericho loomed in the distance, its massive walls seemingly impenetrable, a fortress guarding the way forward. Joshua, the leader of Israel after Moses, emerged from his tent, his face solemn but resolute. He had spent the night in prayer, seeking guidance from the Lord. God had already assured him, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men." But the battle plan God laid out was unlike anything Joshua had expected. The city of Jericho was formidable. Its towering walls, some say over 30 feet high and 20 feet thick, were designed to keep invaders out. Inside, the people of Jericho were on high alert. They had heard the stories, the parting of the Red Sea, the miraculous provision in the wilderness, and most recently, the Israelites' victory over the Amorite kings. Fear gripped their hearts, and the gates of the city were tightly shut. Joshua gathered the priests, the soldiers, and the people to relay God's unusual instructions. For 6 days we will march around the city once each day. The priests will carry the Ark of the Covenant, and 7 priests will go before it, blowing trumpets made of ram's horns. On the 7th day we will march around the city 7 times, and the priest will blow the trumpets. When you hear the long blast of the trumpets, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the walls of the city will fall down flat. The people listened in silence. There were no murmurs of dissent, no questions about the unconventional strategy. After years of seeing God's hand at work, they had learned to trust him completely. Day 1. The camp came alive with movement as the priests lifted the ark, its golden surface gleaming in the sunlight. The soldiers armed themselves and lined up in formation. Slowly they began the procession. Around the city they marched in silence, except for the haunting sound of the ram's horn trumpets. Inside Jericho, the people watched from the walls, bewildered and uneasy. "What are they doing?" whispered a soldier to his comrade, but no one dared to leave the city gates. Day 2 to 6. The routine continued. Each day the Israelites marched a single lap around the city. The trumpets sounded echoing through the valley, but the people of Jericho heard no shouts, no battle cries, no clash of weapons, just the steady, deliberate march. By the 4th day, murmurs likely rippled through Jericho's streets. Some may have begun to mock the Israelites. What do they hope to accomplish with this foolish parade? Others, gripped by fear, stayed hidden in their homes, praying to their gods for protection. But the Israelites were undeterred. Each step around the city was an act of obedience, a declaration of faith in the God who had never failed them. The 7th day, at dawn, the camp stirred earlier than usual. This was the day the Lord would fulfill his promise. The soldiers, priests, and people lined up, hearts pounding with anticipation. As the first rays of sunlight broke over the city, they began their march, once, twice, 3 times around the city. With each lap, the tension grew. By the 7th time, the people were ready, every fiber of their being focused on what God had commanded. The priests blew their trumpets, a long, piercing blast that filled the air. Then Joshua's voice rang out, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." A mighty roar erupted from the people of Israel, a shout that seemed to shake the very ground beneath their feet. And then it happened. The massive walls of Jericho, so thick and unyielding, began to crumble. Stones cracked and fell. Dust and debris filled the air as the seemingly invincible fortress collapsed. In a matter of moments, the proud walls of Jericho lay in ruins, leaving the city defenseless. The Israelites surged forward, taking the city just as God had promised. Rahab, the woman who had sheltered the spies, and her family were spared, just as the spies had sworn. Her scarlet cord hanging from her window was a symbol of her faith in the God of Israel. The victory at Jericho was a pivotal moment in Israel's journey into the Promised Land. It was not won by the strength of their army or the brilliance of their strategy, but by their unwavering faith and obedience to God's command. Joshua stood amidst the ruins of Jericho, his heart filled with awe and gratitude. The Lord had once again proven his power and faithfulness. The people of Israel rejoiced, their voices rising in praise to the God who had delivered them.